The rain hit the pavement like judgment, cold and endless. Downtown Chicago had never felt crueler. Victor Hale, once the titan behind Haletech, shuffled along the sidewalk in a worn coat that hung too big on his thin frame. His beard was unkempt, gray streaking through like dust over ruins. His shoes, once handmade Italian leather, now bore water stains and loosened soles. 3 months ago, he was worth $2.4 billion. Now, nothing. Not even his name bought him coffee anymore. The betrayal had been clean, surgical. Marcus Reed, his CFO, his best friend of over 2 decades, had fed him a fantasy. A merger with Horizon Enterprises, promises of global dominance, next-level logistics. Victor had trusted Marcus with everything, the numbers, the contracts, the gut checks. That trust became the knife. Turns out, Horizon wasn't a company. It was a shell, a trap. Paper trails were fabricated, assets rerouted. By the time Victor realized the fraud, it was too late. Investors pulled out, lawsuits buried him. Marcus disappeared to Europe, and Victor, stripped of everything, watched from a courthouse bench as his legacy was sold for parts. With no wife, no children, and few true friends, the silence in his apartment became unbearable. He left, just walked out one morning and never returned. His bank accounts were frozen, his face splashed across a business blogs as a cautionary tale. The fall was spectacular and very, very public. That night, soaked through and hungry, Victor ducked into a tiny roadside diner that smelled like bacon grease and forgotten dreams. It wasn't the kind of place someone like him would have noticed before, but now it was warmth, it was light, it was something. He sat in the far corner, trying not to look suspicious. His stomach groaned from emptiness. The menu in front of him was blurry, maybe from the hunger, maybe from the shame. A young waitress approached, early 30s maybe, auburn hair tied back in a tired ponytail. Her name tag said, Sophia. "Can I get you something, sir?" she asked gently, her voice soft like rain on a rooftop. Victor looked up, startled by her kindness. Most people these days recognized him, or at least avoided him. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I just needed to sit down." "I don't have," but Sophia didn't flinch. She glanced around, then knelt beside the table, lowering her voice. "You look like you've had a rough night," she said. "How about a grilled cheese and some tomato soup?" On me, Victor blinked. "I can't let you do that," she smiled, reaching into her apron and pulling out a crumpled $10 bill. "It's not charity. It's just dinner. Everyone needs a warm meal sometimes. Call it a loan if that helps." Victor stared at the bill, then at her face. It wasn't pity in her eyes. It was recognition, of pain, of dignity. He accepted, barely whispering a thank you. That night, in the back booth of a nowhere diner, Victor ate slowly, savoring every bite like it was a reminder he still existed. Sophia refilled his water without asking. She didn't press, didn't ask his name, just left a folded napkin on the table before she turned away. It read, "You're not done yet. I can feel it." Victor clutched the napkin all the way to the shelter he found later that night. In his heart, something shifted. The world had turned its back, but a stranger had offered him a lifeline, a $10 meal, a scrap of kindness. And in that moment, Victor Hale decided one thing: he would rise again. The city never makes it easy for a man to come back from the dead, especially not a man the city once worshipped. Victor Hale's first nights after that meal were spent rotating between shelters and park benches, his body aching with every stiff morning. His pride, once so carefully cultivated, was stripped down to scraps. But even when his stomach growled or his hands trembled from cold, he kept the napkin Sophia gave him folded in his inside coat pocket, a coat he refused to discard, even as it frayed further each week. "You're not done yet. I can feel it." The words lived with him, and they haunted him in the best way. He started where no one expected a billionaire to start, at a public computer terminal in a downtown library. His ID was expired, his name flagged on half the tech forums he used to own, but he didn't care. There, surrounded by strangers sleeping in chairs and kids playing math games online, Victor began sketching again, not with blueprints, but with values. His new idea was simple: a tech company that didn't hoard data, didn't exploit labor, didn't treat ethics like a press release afterthought. If Hale Tech was built on dominance, this one, he'd call it Hale Innovations, would be built on dignity. He pitched it to dozens of people. Doors slammed, emails bounced. Nobody wanted to invest in a disgraced billionaire with vision. But one day, an old colleague named Marla Yoon, someone he'd mentored back in the 90s, met him for coffee after seeing his name trending again, this time in a forgotten tweet thread about financial corruption victims. Marla didn't offer him charity. She offered him a challenge. "You get one pitch," she said, "one shot. If I believe it, I'll invest, but only if you don't pretend to be who you used to be." He didn't. He showed her the models, the ethics-first AI protocols, the transparency clauses, the non-profit arm he wanted to run alongside it, Hale Futures, which would fund education and small business grants for communities affected by predatory mergers, people like Sophia. Marla stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, "Let's build it." That was year one. By the end of year two, Hale Innovations had signed 3 major government transparency contracts, won an International Ethics Award, and, for the first time in decades, was listed as a public benefit corporation instead of a traditional for-profit tech firm. Victor never posted about his success. No press tours, no puff pieces. He didn't want the world's applause. He just wanted to keep his promise, the one he'd made silently in the diner that night. And so, on a cool morning in early spring, exactly 3 years after the night Sophia gave him $10 and hope, Victor Hale stepped out of a Blacktown car in front of Maggie's diner. He wore a crisp, charcoal coat this time. His hair was neatly combed, his beard trimmed, but there were still tired lines under his eyes, the kind that didn't come from wealth or power, but from digging yourself out of a hole the world expected to bury you in. Inside the diner, Sophia was clearing a table near the front window. She didn't see him at first. Victor stepped in, quietly, as the bell above the door jingled. The place hadn't changed. The floors were still scuffed, the air still smelled like butter and old coffee, and the same ancient jukebox played soft country songs nobody really listened to. He took a breath and walked to the same booth, the one in the back, and sat. Sophia turned, wiping her hands on her apron. Then she froze. Her eyes met his. Recognition bloomed slowly, like a sunrise through fog. "Wait, I know you," she whispered. "You're—" Victor held up a hand, smiling gently. "I don't expect you to remember, but 3 years ago you gave a stranger $10 and a grilled cheese sandwich." Sophia blinked. "You were— Oh my God, that was you?" He nodded. "And I never forgot." He slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a check made out to her name, $10,000, and a handwritten note that read, "Call it repayment. With interest." Sophia covered her mouth, stunned. "What? What is this?" Victor smiled softly. "Just the beginning. I'd also like to offer you a position. At my foundation. No catch, no expectations. You changed my life, Sophia. I'd like to change yours, if you'll let me." Sophia sat in her new office on the 17th floor of the Hale Futures building, trying to make sense of how far her life had come in just 2 weeks. The window behind her stretched floor to ceiling, offering a breathtaking view of downtown. But she didn't stare at the skyline. She stared at her hands. Hands that had scrubbed diner counters, filled ketchup bottles, held her mother's when the pain got bad. Now those hands typed reports, led strategy calls, signed proposals. Victor had given her more than a job. He'd given her a mission. Hale Futures wasn't like anything she'd imagined. It wasn't about throwing money at problems. It was about healing what corporations like the old Hale Tech had broken. Local jobs outsourced for profit, small towns gutted by mergers, hospitals defunded by data-driven efficiency models. Sophia quickly became one of the Foundation's most respected voices. Her ideas were bold but grounded. She knew what real people needed because she'd been one of them. She used her first paycheck not on herself, but on her mom's overdue hospital bills and a new electric wheelchair for Liam. And for the first time in years, their small apartment didn't feel like a pressure cooker of survival. Victor watched from a respectful distance. He didn't micromanage. He didn't gloat. He simply checked in, always with the same quiet sincerity. Do you have what you need to succeed? But the past doesn't stay buried forever. It started with a grant proposal she was reviewing late one night. It was a request from a closed-down factory town called Glenvale, the same town where Sophia's mother had worked as a packaging line supervisor for 17 years. The proposal mentioned layoffs caused by Hailtech's restructuring in 2021, part of the Horizon merger. The dates lined up too closely to ignore. Sophia's breath caught. She dug deeper, pulling up archived internal memos from the old Hailtech servers that had been made public after the fraud trials. One file referenced a cost-saving strategy that led to the elimination of 220 factory jobs in Glenvale, including the plant where her mother had worked. The closure was signed off by two names, Marcus Reed and Victor Hale. Her chest tightened. She clicked through the rest of the file, scanning email chains between Victor and Marcus. The language was cold, strategic. She saw phrases like non-essential labor realignment and collateral workforce attrition. Her mother's face flashed in her mind. The panic when the severance ran out. The tears she tried to hide when the medicine costs doubled. The night she told Sophia, "I don't think I can afford to keep getting sick." Sophia shut her laptop. For the first time since starting at Hale Futures, she didn't feel inspired. She felt betrayed. The next morning, Victor was waiting in the sunroom of the foundation. He was there for a quarterly team meeting, sipping tea quietly. When Sophia entered, he smiled and stood. But she didn't sit. "Did you know," she said, her voice calm but razor-sharp, "that your name is on the layoff orders that closed Glenvale Packaging in 2021? Victor's smile faded. He looked at her, not shocked, but sad. "Yes," he said quietly. "I did know." Her voice cracked. "That's where my mom worked. That closure nearly destroyed us. You—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "You helped make that decision. And then you let me believe you were the victim of it all." Victor placed the tea down with trembling fingers. "Sophia, I didn't know your connection to Glenvale until recently. And yes, I was part of that call. I justified it to myself at the time. Numbers, margins, survival. But I was wrong. I see that now." She crossed her arms. "So all of this, the foundation, the generosity, was it just guilt?" "No," he said, and there was something raw in his voice now. "It was gratitude. It was a second chance. You saved me when I had nothing. And when I started Hale Futures, I wanted to make sure I never played God with someone's future again. But I can't change the past, Sophia. I can only answer to it." She stared at him for a long moment. Her heart ached with contradiction. The man before her was so different from the name on that email. But both were real. And now she had to decide what came next. The tension between Sophia and Victor never exploded. It simply cooled, quietly. They still spoke, still worked together. But something in Sophia had shifted, a wound reopened, one that made her double-check intentions and question what other truths might be buried beneath the polished wood and clean mission statements of Hale Futures. She threw herself into work with more urgency than ever. If she couldn't erase the past, she would rewrite the future in real time. Then, the disruptions began. First, a grant announcement to a mental health clinic in Missouri was leaked before it was finalized, sparking political backlash and jeopardizing the deal. Then, internal documents discussing AI transparency protocols were misquoted in a major media outlet, painting Hale Innovations as shady, even secretive. Sophia sat at her desk one night, reading a blog post titled "The Phoenix Myth of Victor Hale" that accused the foundation of using philanthropy to cover up unethical tech practices. The author? A pseudonym, but the language, She recognized it. Calculated, cutting, strategic. It was Marcus Reed's style. She remembered the old emails, the way he phrased risk as opportunity, guilt as optimization. If he was behind this smear campaign, it wasn't just business. It was revenge. She pulled up cybersecurity reports from the last 6 weeks. Then she noticed something strange. Multiple login attempts from an external IP address traced back to Chicago's South Side. Sophia's stomach dropped. Liam lived there. Her younger brother. The only person she trusted completely. The same brother who had grown more distant lately. Who had refused help when she offered to cover all his school debt. Who insisted on figuring it out himself. She went to visit him the next day. His apartment was cluttered, textbooks, ramen cups, a half-built gaming rig on the floor. Liam, 24, bright and frustrated, met her at the door in a hoodie and headphones. "Soph?" he said, surprised. "What's up?" She didn't sit. "I need to ask you something and I need the truth." He raised an eyebrow. "Okay. Have you been talking to anyone about my work or about Hale Innovations?" Liam's face changed, not guilt, but confusion. "I mean, yeah, kinda. I've been messaging with this guy from a journalist group. He said they were trying to uncover corporate hypocrisy, asked if I knew anything shady about your new job." Sophia's voice sharpened. "And you told him?" Liam stepped back, defensive. "I didn't leak secrets or anything. I just mentioned some internal names you've said and a couple documents I saw on your laptop when you were visiting Mom." I thought he was doing an exposé on old-school corruption, not this. Sophia's heart sank. "Liam, that guy isn't a journalist. That's Marcus Reed." Liam's mouth opened, then closed. "Wait, Marcus? The CFO guy who? No way." "Yes. He's trying to destroy Hale Innovations, and you may have helped him." Liam sat down hard on the couch, like the air had been knocked out of him. "I didn't know. I swear, Sophia, I didn't know." She wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she sat beside him, covering her face with her hands. "I believe you, but this is serious. If that leak goes further, it could collapse everything we've built." "I'll fix it," Liam said immediately. "Tell me what to do." She looked at him, and something in her gaze softened. "You're going to write a statement. Publicly. You'll admit what you shared and why. We'll tie it to a larger message about how even well-meaning people get manipulated, but we'll get ahead of it." He hesitated. "They'll drag me." She nodded. "Maybe, but they won't destroy you. And more importantly, you'll stop them from destroying something good." 3 days later, the statement went live on the Hale Futures blog. It was raw, honest, vulnerable. Liam described being approached by someone he trusted, lured by the idea of exposing hypocrisy. But instead, he said, "I learned the hard way that not everyone who says they care about truth actually does." The post went viral. And public opinion began to shift again. Sophia sat in her office that night, staring at the screen long after the comments stopped refreshing. Marcus had tried to strike from the shadows, but this time, truth had struck back. The boardroom on the top floor of Hale Innovations had never felt colder. Victor sat at the head of the table, fingers steepled, jaw clenched. Around him were faces of people he once mentored, partners who once fought to be in his orbit. But now they whispered doubts. Legal reviewed leaked messages, half real, half doctored. PR was in full crisis mode. Across from him, Sophia stood silent, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The source of the chaos? A 78-page report released that morning by a shell organization called Integrity First. It accused Hale Innovations of greenwashing, data misuse, and deceptive hiring practices, all built on twisted fragments of old Hale Tech records and recent internal documents Liam had unknowingly exposed. Victor knew the name behind the organization, Marcus Reed. After disappearing from the public eye post-merger scandal, Marcus had reemerged with a vengeance. His new playbook wasn't numbers, it was noise. Lies, speculation, manipulation, and it was working. Stockholder confidence dipped 18% overnight. The media had a field day. Is Hale Innovations just another rebrand of corporate greed? Marcus is betting we'll fold under scrutiny, Victor said quietly, finally breaking the silence. Sophia nodded. He's not just betting, he's counting on it. If you stay at the helm, every story will tie you to the past. You'll never be able to shake Hale Tech. Victor looked out the window. His eyes were tired, not weak, just done. I tried to make something good this time, something right. But maybe I'm not the one to lead it anymore. Sophia didn't speak. He turned back to her slowly. But I know who should. The room went still. Sophia blinked. Victor, no, I didn't build this. You did, he said firmly. Piece by piece, with integrity, with clarity. When I couldn't face my own name, you gave it meaning again. The board members shifted, glancing between them. You all want to survive this, Victor continued, now addressing the room. You want to protect the future of what we're building? Then the best thing I can do for this company is step down. Gasps, murmurs. Sophia stepped forward. Victor, he raised a hand. Let me finish. His voice was steady, no trace of regret. Effective immediately, I'm resigning as CEO of Hale Futures. The board has my recommendation and full support to name Sophia James as the next chief executive. There was silence. Then a single clap. Then more. It wasn't applause. It was acknowledgement. By the time the press conference was held that evening, headlines had already shifted. Hale steps down, names unknown. Heroine to save future. Sophia stood at the podium, Victor by her side but a step behind. I'm not here to rewrite the past, she began, her voice calm. I'm here to be honest about it. My own family suffered because of corporate decisions made without faces, without context, without care. But we're building something different now, and I'm here to ensure we never forget who we serve. Victor watched from the wings, heart full. He didn't feel like a failure. Not anymore, because his legacy was no longer a building or a brand. It was a woman with fire in her voice and empathy in her spine. And finally, it was in the right hands. 10 years later, the wind off Lake Michigan carried the scent of spring and new beginnings. A crowd had gathered outside a gleaming new community center on the city's south side, where banners read, Hale Futures Community Hub, Opening Day. Children chased balloons in the courtyard. Families stood in line for free health screenings. In one corner, a startup incubator booth explained grant options for single mothers launching businesses. Every detail of the space, from the accessible design to the solar-paneled roof, bore the signature of the woman now stepping onto the small stage. Sophia James, CEO of Hale Futures. Her hair was longer now, touched with streaks of silver. But her eyes still held the same grounded fire, the same clarity that once quieted boardrooms and steered public opinion. She wore no suit, no heels, just a soft blue blouse and dark jeans, sleeves rolled like she was ready to help someone move furniture afterward. She stepped to the microphone, smiling gently. This building doesn't represent a company, she began. It represents a promise that no one should be left behind. That dignity shouldn't be a luxury, and that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. In the crowd, an older man watched from the third row. He wore a gray coat. His cane rested against his chair. His name tag said, Honorary Founder, but no one needed a name tag to know who he was. Victor Hale, now 73, listened quietly. His hands trembled more these days. He didn't travel often, but he wouldn't have missed this for anything. Watching Sophia up there, a woman who once handed him a $10 bill and a grilled cheese sandwich, filled him with something deeper than pride. It was peace. He closed his eyes briefly, remembering the diner, the rain, the napkin she gave him. You're not done yet. I can feel it. He opened his eyes as Sophia stepped down from the stage and made her way toward him. She smiled the same way she had that night in the booth. Still not done, are we? She said softly. Victor chuckled. Apparently not. She handed him a small envelope. For you. He opened it carefully. Inside was a framed note, aged but carefully preserved. It was the original napkin, but next to it a new edition, a check made out in his name, written for $10. He looked up, puzzled. "It's a joke," Sophia said with a wink. "Repayment. With interest." Victor laughed, a sound that came out cracked but joyful. They sat together under the awning, watching a young boy help an elderly woman carry groceries from the food pantry. In the distance, volunteers helped teens learn how to repair computers. "What you built here," Victor began. Sophia stopped him. "What we built. It started with your fall, Victor, but it rose with your humility. You gave me power, not in title but in trust." Victor looked at her, his eyes misting. "You took what nearly destroyed us both," he said, voice thick, "and turned it into something that saves people. Every single day." Sophia nodded. "And tomorrow we do it again." A breeze passed between them, not cold, just enough to stir the leaves and lift the corner of the banner overhead. Victor leaned back, hands resting on the cane across his lap. He didn't need buildings in his name, he didn't need wealth. What he needed, what he had, was something more powerful, redemption. And the knowledge that one act of kindness had created a ripple that never stopped moving. He turned to Sophia one last time. "You know," he said softly, "that night at the diner, I thought I had nothing left." Sophia looked out at the laughing families, the humming energy of purpose all around them. "You had $10 worth of hope left," she said. Victor smiled. "And it was more than enough."